It's going to be a really great time to get into some Commanders talk. As Mike said, we have played them 3 times in the last 4 years, so it isn't like they're foreign. But I would like to see and interact with what coming right straight out of Washington and what they think of their hot start. So we're going to bring up George now to talk Washington Commanders football. George, we really appreciate you coming on the show today. We have a lot of guests eager to talk Commanders for a little bit here.
Sure.
As you know, starting off 2-0 is a hot start for you, man. And we appreciate you coming on. You can be seen from FPC Commanders and Command the Mic. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you got going on, and welcome to the show.
No, of course, man. Thank you for having me. I really am happy to be here as well. I definitely want to learn about the Bills as well. I think if we're, want to talk about that for sure. So I'm George Carmi at Carmi21 on Twitter, or X as people call it. I have a YouTube account, Command the Mic. We have a weekly show about the Commanders I talk about on YouTube. I do live streaming during the games. I also am the writing editor, managing editor of Full Press Commanders, the podcast and the publication. So happy to be here, guys.
Yeah, happy to have you join the show today. And before Kevin gets you started with all these difficult questions about your team, just want to get your mindset. How are you feeling right now at 2-0? It has to be feeling pretty good start to the season. Obviously, a new ownership group. It has to feel like a fresh start for Commanders fans down in Washington. And while the opponents weren't the most difficult, it appears on the outside that you guys are playing some solid football to open the season.
Cool, absolutely. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the Commander fans in the group, man. That's awesome. There's people in the chat. I appreciate that for sure. And Mike, yeah, definitely. It's a breath of fresh air. I'm a season ticket holder. I've been a fan for many, many years now. I'm doing content since 2016. And it just feels good. It feels good to write positive articles. It feels good to have positive podcasts. It feels good to have winning in DC. And even when we had winning in Washington with Robert Griffin III or Alex Smith for that short period of time, or any kind of short stint of success, there was always a glass ceiling with Dan Snyder as our owner. So just getting rid of him removed that stink and removed that glass ceiling for us, and gave us the opportunity to have a higher ceiling as well. And it just feels good. We have Magic Johnson as part of our ownership group. Like, it is cool. I'm a guy from the 90s. I grew up in the 90s baby. And it's Magic Johnson, man, he owns my team. He's tweeting out and he's wearing Commanders gear. Like, what the hell is going on right now? This is coming from Dan Snyder. It's a complete turnaround. And we've been playing some pretty good ball. It's been fun. Having Eric Bieniemy as our offensive coordinator from the Chiefs is also exciting. I think with Washington, it's kind of the sky's the limit. For years and years, Ron Rivera has been putting together our roster, and we've had some remedial results. We've been getting around 500 football, 8-1. It's ridiculous. We had 17 games last year, 8-1. Who thought we'd go to 500 at that point? But it just feels good. I feel like with Sam Howell, there's finally hope in DC. We don't have any veteran retreads. We have a homegrown quarterback that we selected late, and it kind of feels good that there is a higher upside than we usually have. So it feels good.
Wanted, you kind of got into it a little bit there, but let's go a little bit more granular. Recap,
sure.
And this is an easier question for, if it's week 15. But recap so far, just briefly, your 2 weeks, what we saw in depth from your team, the big comeback, the 18-point comeback there in that game. I watched a lot of that game, and so I was able to take away some notes from that. But in your eyes, recap of that game for us, as well as the margin of victory against Arizona too.
Yeah, definitely. So just going into the offseason, the big conversation that was going on in DC is our offensive line has some deficits, and our linebacking core has some deficits as well. So I think what happened very early on with the Cardinals, we'll start off with there, was that Sam Howell has propensity to hold on the ball, and that goes back to North Carolina. He was sacked at a ridiculous, I think, a 10% rate in college. He gave up 6 sacks in his first game, had a couple of turnovers, a very ghastly turnover. I don't know if you guys caught the game, but it was like a sack fumble where the ball bounced into the end zone. They scored a touchdown, got up, I think, 14-0 at one point, and it seemed like hard to overcome at that point. I think what happens is I think we're very high on Sam Howell in DC right now because we feel like he has some upside. He is a coach's son. For those of you who don't follow it, he was developed. He started 37 games at UNC. We find that he has a lot of poise, and I find that you guys will see that too on Sunday. He might make a mistake, but he won't get rattled, and he'll come back and bounce back again. So what happened was our first game, we got down big. We were getting sacks. We were getting, giving up some pretty costly sacks and some bad turnovers, but then we rectified it. And I think the better team won in week 1. I think we're overall more talented than Arizona, truly. Week 2, Denver basically just got out ahead. Just, Sean Payton, man, for all the flack that we get and for all the, the bravado that he has, he actually is a pretty talented offensive coordinator. And he took advantage of Jack Del Rio in the first half. We're down 21-3. And in Washington land, we're like, man, this is like the same old Commanders, same old Redskins, same old Washington football team. It's not looking good. But then what happened was, and we've seen this for 2 games now, and it's going to be interesting to see for week 3. There has been halftime adjustments. Like Washington's done a good job of basically kind of adjusting and kind of recalibrating. And what happened was the second half, our defense just basically shut down the Broncos and basically kind of like stopped them cold. And then Eric Bieniemy started dialing things up in the second half. And Sam Howell had 39 pass attempts last game. He had 30 in the first half. And I think what happened was they started to pound the ball in the second half. They started running with Brian Robinson. He ended up with 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think they started to control the game, and they started to rectify that offensive line issue. So we look pretty good. I'm pretty confident. It's going to be a pretty tough battle on week 3, but we're looking pretty good. I'm happy with our growth so far.
So how is Sam Howell getting it done so far? So for fans that aren't familiar with him, because he is newer to most fan bases across the NFL.
Sure.
He's thrown for around 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception so far. But from a box score purist, just looking at the box score, not having seen him much in the past, it seems like he's spreading the ball out a lot. There really hasn't been a primary target. It looks like it's been evenly distributed throughout your weapons. And then when he's not passing it, it's just been Brian Robinson just pounding the rock. You're not seeing much Antonio Gibson early on this year. Is that something that you expected to continue, basically passing it around and relying on Robinson to get the yards on the ground?
Yeah, definitely. So let's start off with the passing and Sam Howell, right? So we transitioned from Scott Turner to Eric Bieniemy. Scott Turner had an Air Coryell offense. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that by any chance, but it's more like vertical shots and basically 7-step drops, 5-step drops. Just kind of, we thought that it was a perfect match with Carson Wentz to basically launch the ball downfield. But Carson Wentz is a statue, and, our offense line wasn't great. This was a really bad formula last year. So this year, Eric Bieniemy is having more of a short, quick passing game and kind of utilizing the yards after catch. And I think it's actually working, because I think if you actually look at the Washington's receiving core, like that's what they're built for, right? Terry McLaurin's more of a yard after catch kind of wide receiver. Jahan Dotson's more of like a scatty kind of slot kind of guy. And we have Curtis Samuel as well. So we have guys that are kind of built for yards after catch. And I think Eric Bieniemy is kind of utilizing more of a quick passing game just to get the ball out of Sam Howell's hand, just kind of like a one read, get rid of it, because he is holding the ball too long. From a fantasy perspective, I have a full press fantasy podcast. It is kind of frustrating, because I thought Jahan Dotson was going to have a breakout year. I thought Terry McLaurin was going to have a breakout year, but for 2 games, I think just winning is all that really matters right now. I don't think they're looking for stats. I think the ball is going to be distributed across all the receivers. And then, to be honest with you, this is how I expected the run game. Like, I know in the fantasy world, Antonio Gibson was supposed to have that breakout year, be more of like a receiving running back, more of a screen running back. And he has that ability, but to be honest with you guys, I'll always be honest, is that he doesn't have great vision. Like, he's a fast guy, and he's a 4.3 guy, but he's not really a shifty 4.3 guy. He's kind of like a long speed kind of guy. So Antonio Gibson, people want him to be dynamic and explosive, but I don't see it in him. I can see him doing a couple plays here or there, but I think what they want to do is pound the rock with Brian Robinson. And what you guys will see is that Brian Robinson will catch the ball more than you think. He's more of a bulkier, big running back, but he'll still catch the ball. I wouldn't be surprised 4 or 5 catches a game, and this game, and then he's get 20 carries. He is our workhorse, and Antonio Gibson is more of kind of like a change of pace kind of back.
I think what's interesting in this game, as you kind of fast forward to this matchup, is you have a situation to where a lot of talks around the Bills around their week 1 performance. It was a strange game, Monday Night Football. The quarterback, tore his Achilles on the 4th play of the game. Yep. Zach Wilson comes in cold. The Bills did not have a game plan set for him. They actually were more of a cover 2 shell. They were planning to play quarters coverage in a situation, cover 3, to where they were going to make Aaron Rodgers earn it. Zach Wilson came in and it completely changed, and they switched to they were running 13 personnel at times. So just advantage Jets in a situation of they had a game plan set. The only team this year that will have a game plan for Aaron Rodgers. So they took a definite knock, and if there's a time to get the Bills for, in the Jets case, it was then, because the Bills had a defensive game plan that was not run heavy. So then fast forward to this week, the most past week against the Raiders, the Bills sold out against the run to the point where they didn't trust Garoppolo to beat them. And they held Josh Jacobs to -2 rushing yards, the least amount from a rushing champion in NFL history. And their DVOA boosts all the way up to the third best run defense. So in your opinion, how do you see them attacking the Bills? So the Bills have put out there that, like, okay, fine. Like, if you want to run on us, like the Jets did, we're going to stop that. So do you want to go with that approach like you kind of saw in the second half against the Broncos? Or are you thinking that Sam Howell is going to have to do a little bit more in order to beat the Bills defense? So with that question being, Sean McDermott's historically good against younger and quarterbacks with under 10 starts. So where do you think Washington would have their offense? If you're Eric Bieniemy, what's your offensive game plan look like? As he knows the Bills, he's played the Bills many times, multiple times per year, even in his history.
Yeah. So let's answer it in two different ways, right? So if it was me, I know that the Buffalo Bills have an explosive offense. I want to keep Josh Allen on the field, on the bench. I want to keep him off the field. I want to keep Stephon Diggs on the bench as well. And I would want to pound the rock. I want to basically run the ball down your guys' throats, have time for possession, and keep your offense on the bench, right? So what I want to do. I think we'll try to do that. I think we'll attempt to do that, and we'll see if it actually is effective. If anything, like our offense, if we are pigeonholed into dropping back and having to have a pass protection, that's not going to be a good formula for us. That's going to be a disadvantage for us. I think you guys have a pretty good pass rush. Our offensive line does have deficits, especially at the tackle positions. Our guards, so we had Sam Cosby. I don't know if you guys are big draft guys, but Sam Cosby was a second-round pick. He was a right tackle at Texas. They bumped him into right guard, and he's a pretty athletic. Just like we had Brendan Sheriff a couple of years ago. We had a right tackle that was, he was decent in college, but then he became elite as a right guard. I think Sam Cosby's kind of come into that aspect right there. Sadiq Charles is our left guard. He's from LSU as a tackle, bumped into guard as well. I think the run game would actually be pretty effective. And then what I think truly is going to happen, so let me take a step back. Ideally, I'd want to run the game, but the way I think Eric Bieniemy is going to attack you guys is a short passive game and the screen game. All summer long, we talked about how there's various ways to incorporate the screen game, and that could be Curtis Samuel, it could be Brian Robinson, it could be Antonio Gibson, it could be a tight end screen. There's still some Travis Kelce kind of elements where the tight end kind of steps up a little bit, throw them a little screen, kind of run up the field that way. I think they're going to try to slow down your pass rush because I don't think Washington is built to sit back and receive it. So I think we have that there. And then another kind of sneaky component for people that don't follow Sam Howell is he's functionally mobile. He is not like a burner like Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields, but he can scramble. I don't know if you guys watched the game film from last week. He can dodge one person and run for 10 or 12 yards. He can do that. And he ran a lot in UNC. I think his junior year had a couple 500 yards rushing at UNC when he was a quarterback there. So I don't want to say this. I don't want to I would imagine a rookie Russell Wilson, and not that elite level, but that's the kind of skill set that Sam Howell has. More of an intermediate passing game, kind of throwing it over the middle, can kind of do some rollouts, kind of run a little bit. That's kind of what you're going to get. And he also has a similar body frame. He's not going to burn you, but he could take a hit, so he might actually will run here or there. So if I was Eric Bieniemy, I'd definitely attack with a short passing game and then try to utilize the run in the second half, try to pound the ball.